Good morning, guys, and welcome to Unique Not Different with me, Shamla. On December 3rd, we celebrated International Day for Persons with Disability. And today we have Dr. Bephyer Parey, who is a research fellow, and we also have Dr. Paulson Skerrit, who is a lecturer and a program coordinator, both at the University of the West Indies School of Education. So let's get straight into it because we have a lot to discuss. So, Dr. Paulson, good morning. And can you tell us this year's theme for International Day for Persons with Disability and the need for unity of action for persons with disability?
Yeah, sure. I love the theme, United in Action to Rescue and Achieve the SDGs for, with, and by persons with disabilities. And particularly taking a look at the concept of why the need for unity of action and the context of Trinidad and Tobago. We do need to move away. There's a strong call for moving away from the current fragmentation that exists as we pursue equal rights, equity and inclusion for persons with disabilities. But something I want to stress as we do that, it's critically important for all the disability organizations, the disability-specific groups. They need to clearly define and keep in focus what that equity means for each disability type, and within each disability type, what equity means for all persons with disabilities, so that when we come together, when we unite in terms of making people aware, advocating, reporting on progress toward implementation, holding parties like our government accountable, their about us concerns are clearly delineated.
Dr. Parey, why should we focus on education and what should be the narratives?
Well, education, equal and quality education is just one of the Sustainable Development Goals 4. It is one of the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in number 4. And from my research, parents want inclusive education, whereby the needs of each child is catered for in the mainstream education system. There is a need for equitable provision of accommodations in mainstream education so children with disabilities can achieve an adequate quality of learning just like their peers with disabilities. In Trinidad, we have so many cases of students with disabilities, of course, with the right support, succeeding in the education system, and it is possible for this to be the narrative of many children with disabilities. And coming back to the theme, Paulson highlighted, for this to happen, there is a need for unity and equal for inclusive education, and re-emphasis that inclusion is not synonymous with mainstreaming. It's not just about including children with disabilities in irregular schools, and that holistic development, including socio-emotional, physical, cognitive, and behavioral dimensions also need to be addressed.
Dr. Paulson, can you tell us, give us some examples of equitable provisions for persons with disability?
So, very much people, when they think of accommodations, the first thing that comes to their mind is extra time. And they see that as a panacea for all the needs of people with disabilities, and it isn't. So if you want to be truly equitable, we're giving people what they need to have the same achievement, you have to think of what each person with a disability based on their disability type needs. So for example, a child with autism, for their exams, they might need noise-canceling headphones, they might need preferential seating, assistive technology to read the text of the exam papers, maybe some scrap paper so they could convert that text into something visual and they could process it. So the accommodation has to be a feature, of course, of the child's educational experiences leading up to the exam. You can't just come and give a child accommodation based on some assessment and they haven't had that as part of their educational. That is not going to lead to equity. And when we think of the standardized assessments, that's where the issue really arises, because people think standardized means giving everybody the same thing. But for persons with disabilities, that's not going to be equity. For example, deaf children in their early learning experiences, they're basically impacted by language deprivation. So to just give them extra time is not going to help. So much needs to be done even before at the home, school, and national level, so that those deaf children are immersed in language, that they're actually taught in their schools an accessible visual spatial language from infancy, so that during those critical language years, they can develop the skills so when they go to the exam, the accommodations they get would really support their development. So when we think of accommodations, we can't just think, okay, giving them extra time, we're giving them that, so we're doing what we need to do. It has to be that the accommodations meet. It might even mean for deaf children, the schools have been asking for that for a long time, a different rubric, and training teachers to use that rubric to assess the assessments of the deaf children.
Dr. Bephyer, when it comes to employment, what should be the narrative?
Yeah, answer that question. So decent work, that's another sustainable development goal. It's goal 8. And when we talk about decent work in the context of persons with disabilities in Trinidad and Tobago, what we are seeing is that people are reliant on the disability grant for survival because they do not have access to jobs. And the unfortunate thing is that they are unable to achieve an adequate standard of living on the grant because of the extra cost of disability. And in one of my studies, I looked at the achievement of well-being indicators between 2 groups of persons with disabilities: employed persons with disabilities and unemployed persons with disabilities. And what is clear is that when persons with disabilities have work, they achieve more well-being indicators, which is always a plus, right? Now, I know there is some controversy regarding the provision of the grants, whether it's a child grant or the grant for working age persons with disabilities, when the income of the household is high. And I feel that by itself requires an entire discussion. So all I'm going to emphasize is that the extra cost associated with disability is real, and there is need for a discussion about the approach taken when distributing the grant to ensure the rights of persons with disabilities are achieved. Coming back to the overall theme of employment, another aspect of the narrative that needs to be changed is the expectations regarding the kinds of jobs or the types of businesses where you would expect to find persons with disabilities employed. Changing that may mean prescribing a kind of quota for institutions to hire persons with disabilities. But just generally, currently, too many businesses, including the public service that should be setting an example, do not have persons with disabilities in their employ. And this absence of persons with disabilities in the workplace adds to the stigma present within society, and which again has implications on inclusion, equal rights, and the achievement of sustainable development goals. So yes, there are need for some changes specific to probably the implementation of quotas, as well as balancing the needs of persons with disabilities and balancing whether they access to employment as well as their access to grants.
Awesome, Dr. Paulson, can you quickly give us your take on this point?
Yeah, so the truth is there has been a change in the narrative, especially in the field of employment. We've seen more and more persons with disabilities getting, good jobs, and so that change is there. But too much of the change is happening from the perspective of people with disabilities. They have had to be fighting, and recently I attended a symposium, and people with disabilities with their PhDs, master's degree, with all kinds of specialized skills, that they have earned up to their post-secondary qualifications, having designed, doing all kinds of amazing things in the field of work. But the one theme that ran through their presentations was they talked about having to fight. Why do they have to fight? So the narrative is changing from their perspective. It has to change from everybody else. So we reduce this need for persons with disabilities to be fighting for real inclusion and no longer having to depend on handouts, but they can feel included to work and feel that sense of satisfaction. And we can be satisfied too that they're able to do their part. And the need for that is going to happen when we get the realization of that need, when we get that disability-specific legislation. And finally, we seem to be scratching the surface and getting to that point where we can have that disability legislation that is going to hold people accountable. It's going to be very specific in detailing what needs to happen. And I know from Bephyr's research that the current legislative framework we have is not doing a really good job of protecting the rights of persons with disabilities. And that's why we have so much interest being generated in the disability bill. We hope it's going to be passed soon, and that the current legal provisions we have that have so many deficits that they be amended.
Dr. Bephyer, in 1 minute, can you tell us, are persons aware of what needs to be changed, what should be changed to achieve equity?
Yeah, so persons with disabilities are very cognizant of the changes that need to occur. And so just to give you an example, in the complaints lodged by persons with disabilities with the Equal Opportunity Commission, which my team and I had access to, we saw that they had solutions to the issues they were complaining about. Of course, there were cases where the organizations, were welcoming of these suggestions and implemented it. But just generally, there was an unwillingness to accommodate persons with disabilities. And as a society, we need to be more inclusive in the way we think about persons with disabilities. Both Paulson and I attended the Disability Bill consultation on Saturday at the Hillview College, and a piece of feedback offered by one of the parents, it's a parent whose child has multiple disabilities. What she indicated is that it's not enough time was not allocated to discuss the challenges experienced among the disability community. And we need to ensure that moving forward that we provide an adequate platform for the voices of persons with disabilities as well as the persons caring for them to be heard. I also want to just wrap up saying, last year my team and I, we launched a public awareness project specific to persons with disabilities where they share their stories. And in their messages, they wanted to emphasize to the public that they are also human and they also wanted to be treated with dignity. And this is the dominant narrative among persons with disabilities, and we are hoping that everyone starts to embrace this narrative.
Awesome. Dr. Bephyer, Dr. Paulson, I want to say thank you for coming, taking the time and sharing, your expertise, because you are very experts and researchers in this field. So thank you so much for the work that you are doing. We really appreciate it. Guys, we are out of time, but as I always say, thank you for joining. And until next week, be good. Be good. Bye, everyone.